slow down mute. So thanks very much for this. I'll make this very quick. You've used the word neocon, which is very appropriate, exactly as you used it. But what I've been seeing here lately with Trump and DeSantis is this invention of the so-called right-wing peaceniks. And if you examine it a little bit closer, which no one ever does, these are the guys, Josh Hawley, Matt Gaetz, they're so eager and demanding war against China. You know, they just want to prioritize war against China, which, you know, whichever way it goes, and you know, military doctrine always includes the other, you know, so if we go to war against China, it's necessarily going to include war against Russia. So I think perhaps you could just address this myth making that's going on right now, too, of some sort of peacenik right wing. Long before the neocons entered the scene, we had Barry Goldwater, James Burnham, William Buckley inciting war, demanding even more of Eisenhower and of Kennedy, Kennedy's opponents. So I'll stop there, but I'd love to hear any comments on that.
Yeah, Todd, thank you very much. You know, I was in the Senate office buildings a couple of weeks ago and spoke with Rand Paul, whom I like very much. In many ways, though, I'm in economics, certainly not a libertarian. But he was telling me that just about everybody in the Senate is quite strongly anti-China. So this is bipartisan, both parties, really aggressive language. And that's what I'm observing. That we are creating another extraordinarily dangerous path to an even greater chance of world devastation in a war with China. And so I really appreciate you raising the issue. I'm not going to treat it as a right-wing or democratic issue because I'm observing across the political scene, the rhetoric against China is so wrong-headed, so dangerous, so reckless, so ignorant. I can't imagine it, to tell you the truth. Now, I first went to China in 1981, so 42 years ago. I've been going to China just about every year since then, sometimes many times a year. I have had many Chinese students study at Harvard and at Columbia University under my guidance, who are now senior scholars in China or officials in the Chinese government. Very nice people, very professional people, by the way. We have so little understanding, so little attempt to understand China's perspective. We have so little knowledge of history. I can't even tell you where to start. Maybe we could do another hour or two on China at some point, but I'll tell you, China has never launched an overseas war. As far as I know, never. China's been engaged in one very short war in the last 45 years and zero in the last 40 years. The one war was a brief war in Vietnam, I think it's 43 or 44 years ago now. Very brief. We have been nonstop at war. Mm-hmm. And China, quote, tried to invade Japan once, but that wasn't the Chinese, that was the Mongols who had conquered China. So the Mongols tried to invade Japan in the 13th century, and the fleet was sunk by a typhoon, the so-called kamikaze wind. And Japan tried to invade and did invade China on several occasions, but China never the other way around. And yet we are beating the drumbeats about this violent country, this threat to the world, the country that wants global domination. It's so ignorant. It is so devoid of historical understanding. It is so reckless. It is so stupid. It's hard to imagine how this can come, but it's a game. And it's a game because China is a successful, large country, but these United American strategists, so-called, just are playing a game of who's the top of the hill, who's the king of the castle, who's number one. It's worse than school children. Every time I say they act like school children, my wife tells me I'm insulting school children because there is nothing there that makes us have to have any kind of conflict whatsoever with China. So why is Nancy Pelosi flying to Taiwan over the objections? Why are we integrating Taiwan and the United States military systems just in the most recent days? We have a one China policy. We're breaking it to provoke right now. We're absolutely reckless. We don't talk. It's the same deal. And I'm telling you, this is, for me, mind-boggling, because having been involved in that issue for even longer than with Russia, for more than 40 years, there is no case in the world why we should be in conflict. China doesn't want it. Their living standards, or per capita income, I should say, even at purchasing adjusted prices, are about a third of the United States. They want development. They want quiet. They want trade. They want investment. But no, not the United States. We need to be number one. We need to contain China. We need to make enemies. We need to make threats. And this is heading the same direction, a self-fulfilling prophecy of war. And shame on the Biden administration on this, because Biden has upped the ante on China. And I know it because I see it close up. I have a lot of, they wouldn't call me friends anymore, but I have a lot of very close acquaintances in the administration. This makes no sense what's going on. So I want to assure you that we could have absolutely normal, peaceful relations with China if we move in that direction. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. Martin, back to you, and then